Post 1. I am a female in my late 20s, and my brother is a male in his early 30s. I have always been the big thinker in the family. School clubs, resale side hustles, pop-up markets, all of it. My brother is very practical. He clocks in, clocks out, plays it safe, then complains that life is boring. People like that say they want wins, but they never put anything on the line. They wait for someone like me to test the ice first. Last year, I started a boutique wellness subscription. Think curated boxes with adaptogen teas, small batch aromatherapy, micro workouts in a QR library, and a gentle coaching newsletter. It was not just a box. It was a community and a brand. I had suppliers lined up and a pilot list of 200 early adopters. I needed a short runway to get my first shipment out and cover label printing plus packaging. My brother had savings and a low-interest line of credit. He told me, half joking, that he has always been jealous of my courage. I took that as a green light to ask for help. The first transfer was small, a temporary float to bridge payments until the inaugural drop. His words. He said he did not want to be strict with family. I said I would square him up by summer. That phrase was me trying to be warm and reassuring, not a legally binding declaration. I even texted a smile emoji. At the time, it was obvious we were talking about family support. Then we discussed a larger second amount when the influencer collab came through. I was clear that this second chunk was an investment. We literally used the word stake. I told him that was different from a float and it carried risk in return. He nodded, excited, and said he wanted to be part of something. He even asked me if his name should go on the site footer. I laughed and said that would look tacky for a lifestyle brand. Then the chain of bad luck hit. My first supplier had a raw materials delay. 4 weeks, then 6. Label proofs were rejected for a minor spacing issue that the printer insisted was non-negotiable. 2 of the content creators I had lined up ghosted once they got busier during spring launches. I pushed the ship date twice, communicated transparently, and comped extras. Chargebacks ate into the float. It was a death by 1,000 paper cuts. If you have ever built something, you know this happens. If you have not, it probably sounds like a list of excuses. When the second delay hit, my brother started asking for a timeline. I was already juggling customer expectations, supplier penalties, and a mailing list that needed to be placated every Friday. I told him I would file the 60-day plan once the new supplier locked in. He said his line of credit payment was due now, not when the market vibes improved. His wife called me that night and said, flatly, that I had put their mortgage renewal at risk. That felt cruel and frankly ungrateful. I reminded her that they came to my launch table and took pictures like proud family. If you enjoy the highs, do not abandon me during the lows. I offered what I felt was fair. I said I would not put fresh cash into his monthly minimums because that only props up a system that penalizes builders like me. I said I would repay the initial float when the company stabilized, and as for the second amount, that was an investment. I cannot be expected to guarantee a return on risk capital. That is not how this works. He said we never signed anything and that my texts about squaring him up prove it was a loan. I said context matters. The early message was obviously about the float. Later messages explicitly talk about a stake. We brought this to the family group chat. My mother told him to be kind and remember all the times I promoted his side projects. He used my Canva skills for his softball fundraiser banners for free, and everyone forgets that. My father was quiet, then asked me for a concrete timeline. I told him the brand is going through a consolidation and that I am exploring a pivot to digital. My father said that sounds like no timeline. My brother pasted screenshots of the transfers in the text where I said I would square him up by summer. I said again, that message was to calm him, not a contract. He said he opened a larger line of credit because I told him we were scaling. He used the word we. That is how embedded he was in the vision. Now suddenly he is acting like a stranger who bought a ticket and wants a refund because the weather changed. He says the monthly payments are crushing him and he wants me to at least cover those until I sort it out. I do not see how subsidizing a bank helps my company recover. It would only shrink the runway and make a full repayment less likely. I suggested he pause the line for hardship or transfer the balance to a lower rate. He snapped that he would not have any of this if not for me. I said he would also not have the chance to be part of something bigger if not for me. He called that manipulation. I call it reality. People do not get to enjoy the upside language during the champagne phase, then switch to strict loan language when the wind shifts. For clarity, I am not refusing accountability. I fully intend to repay the original float when the brand rebounds. What I am refusing is to keep giving him money every month like some personal ATM, and I am refusing to let him rebrand the second tranche as a no-risk, guaranteed principal loan. He knew it was an investment. We said those words out loud. He liked how that sounded at the time. Am I the jerk for not wanting to give my brother more money and for insisting the second transfer was an investment with risk attached? Comment 1. You are the jerk. You shifted language whenever it suited you. If the first transfer had a clear payback promise, that is a loan, not a vibe. Pay it back now and stop pretending context erases your own text. Comment 2. Contrarian. Investments carry risk. If he wanted guarantees, he should have kept it a formal loan. He chose to expand the line of credit to play entrepreneur. That is not all on you. OP replied to comment 2. Thank you. This is exactly what I mean about people forgetting how he asked to be part of the build. Everyone wants certainty until it is time to be brave. Update 1. Some people were confused about the timeline, so here are the specifics. The first transfer happened in late February, right before my pre-orders closed, because the printer required payment upfront. The second transfer happened mid-April after the influencer confirmed content dates. When I said I would square him up by summer, that was said in March, in the middle of the launch swirl, and it referred to the February float. I know what I meant, even if my phrasing was casual. I talk like a founder, not like a bank. That does not make me a liar. After my first post, my brother went nuclear in the family chat. He dropped a Google Drive link that had a spreadsheet called OP Debt Tracker, which immediately felt hostile. He included line items for both transfers, interest from his line of credit, and a column titled Broken Promises. That label was uncalled for. He also posted screenshots of me writing, "I will pay you back by June, promise, please relax," with a smile emoji. Everyone piles on the emoji like it proves something. For me, the emoji signals tone, not a notarized pledge. He knows I write that way when I am putting out fires. His wife followed up with his bank letter showing their rate jumping at renewal because their unsecured line of credit usage spiked. She wrote, "We would not be here without your asks." It was so cold. I wanted to write back that they were happy to be photographed at my pop-up with gift bags. Where was this energy then? Instead, I took a deep breath and reminded myself that fear makes people rewrite history. If I absorb every stray jab, I will drown. My mother responded with something I thought was reasonable. We have to hold space for disappointment, but we also have to protect relationships. She kept urging my brother to separate stability from punishment. She has always said I have a sensitive temperament and I take criticism harder than most. That is not an insult. It is a recognition of how deeply I feel. My father said only, "What is the plan to repay the first amount, by what date, and with what source of funds?" He asked this 3 times, very clipped, like a manager. I told him the brand is pivoting to digital experiences for the first quarter and that I am forecasting surplus by late spring. He said those words are not a plan. I offered something constructive. I said I would convert the second transfer entirely to equity in my company. 0 claims, no cap table drama, and I would repay the first transfer after the pivot starts hitting monthly net positive. My brother said no to equity in a dead company. I said it is not dead. It is lean. He said he wants a promissory note with monthly installments beginning now. I told him that would strangle the pivot before it has a chance to breathe. He asked me to name any date this year or next when cash would actually arrive. I said it depends on onboarding new affiliates. He asked for names. I said those conversations are confidential. He laughed and pasted a screenshot of my Shopify dashboard from last month that I shared with him back when things were fine, highlighting that order volume had flatlined. That felt like a violation. I confided in him as family, not as an auditor. Then he escalated. He wrote that if I do not cover the minimums on the line of credit starting this month, he will pursue all remedies, including small claims for the first transfer and exploring unjust enrichment for the second. He also said he would file a fraud alert because he only raised his credit limit due to my assurances about imminent receipts. He used the phrase imminent receipts like a gotcha. Those were my words, yes, in April when the collab was live on our shared content calendar. Is it my fault the supplier delay created churn? I am allowed to be optimistic. Hope is not fraud. I tried to meet him halfway. I suggested a 6-month pause while I stabilize. I told him I would also run a clearance event to liquidate remaining packaging and product so I could send him a lump sum by December. He said any clearance cash would belong to his creditors first. That made me furious. The one time I try to make a concrete step, he makes it a shakedown. I told him I do not feel safe being in contact if every idea becomes a threat. He said boundaries are not threats, they are consequences. That word choice was smug. Meanwhile, my boyfriend told me, gently, that he cannot keep spotting me for courier fees and venue deposits. He said he stands with me emotionally, but financially he is tapped. He suggested I talk to a debt counselor. I heard that as, go admit failure. I did not yell. I just went very quiet and he took that as agreement. He does not get that I am trying to protect my momentum. If I stop to fill out forms, I am admitting the brand is over. Entrepreneurs do not slam the brakes for paperwork. We steer through. My mother invited everyone to our house for a sit-down. My brother brought a folder with a payment schedule, pre-printed, and 3 options of monthly amounts. He said, pick one, sign here, and we can start fresh. I said I'm not signing anything that reframes an investment as a debt instrument. He said we can keep the second transfer disputed, but the first has to be formalized. My father looked at me and said, do you have even $1 to pay today? I told him I could send 40 by Friday. My brother said, we are not doing token gestures. I felt cornered and humiliated. I told them I would not be coerced by a mob and that I was leaving. My mother cried and asked both of us to remember we are siblings. I kissed her cheek and left anyway because nobody was listening. Now my brother is texting me links to small claims forms, and his wife is hinting about getting a lawyer. He keeps asking if I will at least cover his monthly minimums until a judge rules. I do not want to set that precedent. If I start paying his bank, I become responsible for the shape of his debt forever. The only sustainable thing is to get the pivot live, build profit, and then address the original float in good faith. That is the adult approach, even if the internet mob does not like it. Am I the jerk for refusing to cover his monthly payments right now and for declining to sign a promissory note that would suffocate my pivot when I fully intend to repay the original float once the business stabilizes? Comment 1. You are the jerk. Your own texts say, I will pay you back by June. That is the definition of a loan. Pay the first amount now and stop pretending words like pivot dissolve your obligations. Comment 2. The spreadsheet was not hostile. It is called documentation. Your brother is cleaning up the damage you created. Pay him. Update 2. The wave hit yesterday morning. It was not just my parents and my brother anymore. It was aunts, uncles, cousins, in-laws, and people who only remember me as the kid who made friendship bracelets at Thanksgiving and sold them for charity. Apparently, a few relatives had a brunch, and by dessert, they had decided I am single-handedly ruining my brother's future. That is a wild claim to make about someone who has spent her adult life building things while everyone else clocked out at 5. My aunt started it with a long text about how she has been watching the situation and how in our family we value paying our debts. I read that 3 times because the condescension leaked through every line. She wrote that my brother has always been the stable one and that stability should not be punished. Punished. As if asking to be part of something and saying yes to an investment is the same as me forcing him to jump off a bridge. My uncle chimed in to say he was very disappointed and that he had always thought I had integrity. That is such a loaded word to sling at a niece when you have not messaged her in months. Then my cousin, who works in real estate, posted a voice note about mortgage renewals and credit utilization. He said my brother's renewal could become challenging because of the line of credit balance, and he made it sound like I personally called the bank and asked them to raise his rate. He added a spreadsheet image with ratios highlighted in angry red. I wanted to scream. If one more person tries to teach me a basic money concept while ignoring that I am mid-pivot, I am going to take a long walk and turn my phone off forever. Of course, the group decided this is the perfect moment to bring up every family myth. Someone dusted off the story of my Girl Guide cookie fundraiser, where I borrowed float money from Grandma and paid her back after selling out. They are using that to claim I have a pattern of borrowing. That is a fundraiser from middle school. I am a grown woman who runs digital funnels and merch drops. The way they flatten my life into a cautionary tale is so insulting. In the middle of the lecture parade, I got a quiet DM from one cousin who never speaks up. She wrote, "He knew what he was doing when he put in more." It was risk. That one sentence felt like a glass of water in a desert. I replied thank you and said I appreciate someone remembering that we called it a stake. She did not post publicly, and I did not ask her to. Not everyone wants to wade into a mob. But it matters that at least one person remembers the context. By afternoon, my brother sent a formal email with a subject line that read, 30-day repayment proposal. It had letterhead from a generic template website and 3 options. Option A, monthly installments starting next month. Option B, a partial lump sum in 30 days with reduced monthly installments. Option C, a notarized promissory note and an agreed plan to cover his line of credit minimums for 3 months while I get stabilized. He wrote that if I do not select one by the end of 30 days, he will file in small claims on the first transfer and forward his materials regarding the second transfer to his lawyer to evaluate unjust enrichment. He also wrote that he will, in the meantime, restrict further communication to email only. I responded with a thoughtful adult proposal. I offered to host a single clearance event, liquidate what remains of my packaging and physical stock, and wire him whatever that nets by the end of the month. I also offered to formalize an agreement on the first transfer once the digital pivot hits net positive, which I projected for late spring. He replied within minutes. Clearance proceeds belong to creditors. Your plan defers everything. Choose A, B, or C. I told him he is not my manager, and that I will not sign a document that suffocates the pivot. He said that is my choice, but the clock is running. His wife jumped in again to announce that they are putting a pause on family dinners until this is resolved. That is such performative punishment. She is trying to make me the problem that needs quarantining. Mom replied, pleading, suggesting a reset dinner with a neutral agenda. Dad wrote a single line again. You cannot sprint forever on promises. He does not understand how momentum works. If you cut the engine to fill out forms and drip payments to a bank, you do not get back up to speed. Everyone who has never built anything thinks paperwork equals progress. The weirdest part was the public performance. Some of these relatives screenshotted parts of the group chat and dropped them into their stories with vague captions about loans and family values. I know because people sent me the stories. One relative even put up a poll with "pay him now" versus "it was an investment." How is that helpful? And you know what the poll does not show? It does not show the fact that he asked to be part of this, that he used the word stake, that he liked the glow when we looked like a team winning together. It just shows a binary that makes me the villain. For the record, because people keep twisting this, here is what I accept and what I reject. I accept that the first transfer is to be repaid. It was a float, and my text about squaring him up was clearly about that. I reject the idea that I must cover his monthly minimums on the line he expanded to feel like a builder. I reject the idea that my clearance cash must go straight to his bank instead of to the pivot that will generate actual profit. Feeding a line of credit does not heal anything. It is a treadmill. Tonight my phone is full of unread messages from numbers I hardly recognize. Distant relatives telling me to apologize. A neighbor from our old street saying she is sad to see siblings fighting. My boyfriend is keeping his head down now. He says he will support me emotionally, but he will not be in another group chat. I am tired of defending the same facts to people who do not want to hear them. I will not let a chorus of cousins push me into a promise that breaks the business. If the internet needs a villain, they can pick someone else. I am going to keep my head on the pivot. One clearance event, a strong digital relaunch, then I will address the original float with a plan that works. That is the only path that does not end in ashes. People can either let me drive or they can stand on the sidewalk and gossip. Either way, I am steering. Comment 1. Your family is not a mob. They are the people your brother now has to explain this debt to. A 30-day proposal with options is not coercion. It is basic accountability. Stop hiding behind the word pivot and pay the first loan back. Comment 2. Contrarian. One cousin is right. He expanded his line to invest. Risk exists. If you fire sale inventory and relaunch, you might actually get him more back than drip feeding a bank. Hold your line. OP reply to comment 2. Thank you. Exactly. Starving the pivot to feed a treadmill helps nobody. Let me execute the clearance and relaunch so there is a real pie to slice, not scraps. Update 3. The 30-day clock kept ticking, and my brother clearly decided he needed to look serious. Yesterday morning, I received a demand letter from a lawyer with a suburban office address. It cites my March text about, "I will pay you back by June promise," and calls the February transfer a loan. For the April transfer, it uses words like unjust enrichment and detrimental reliance, which are phrases people borrow from podcasts to sound smart. The letter gave me 10 business days to respond with either a repayment plan for the first transfer or they will file. It also said any further social media commentary by me casting aspersions could be used in court to show bad faith. That is an attempt to gag me while they smear me in the family chat. I did not freak out. I focused on execution. I spent the week organizing a one-day clearance pop-up to liquidate the deadweight inventory and packaging. Venue was a small studio space 2 blocks from my apartment. Tables, racks, QR codes, everything labeled. I pushed it on my list, texted a few friendly creators to boost, and set a modest target that would cover a new platform subscription plus 2 months of runway. This was my compromise. Move leftover physical goods, get cash in the door, and buy the pivot some breathing room. I told my mother my plan. She said it sounded hopeful. She also asked if I told my brother. I said no, because anytime I share a next step, he tries to turn it into collateral. She made a worried noise and changed the subject. The event started at 11. We had a good trickle early. I was doing my calm founder voice. People tried samples, scanned codes for digital bundles, and picked up bundles I had assembled from surviving stock. I did not have a card reader for tap, so we used QR and exact cash, which was fine. At noon, my brother walked in with a folder. He did not shop. He did not say hello. He walked right up to my table and placed printouts in front of me like I was a clerk behind a returns desk. The printouts were 3 versions of his payment plan options plus a blank promissory note. I told him, as evenly as I could, that this was not the time or place. He said it is the only time and place I do not ignore him. A few customers paused. I could feel the room stiffen. I said we can talk later. He said later has been 4 months, pick an option now, or he files Monday. I said you are harassing me at my workplace. I raised my voice just enough for witnesses. He kept his tone measured and asked, again, for me to confirm I would start payments. I told him he was making customers uncomfortable and that I might have to ask him to leave. He said, I will leave as soon as you sign or say no on record. On record. He said it like he was a detective in a show. I reached for my phone to call my boyfriend, who was supposed to help but got caught up at his friend's place. I was shaking. I said, no, I am not signing anything that reframes an investment as debt. Because I needed to be verbally clear. He nodded, put the papers back in the folder, and walked out. The whole exchange took maybe 2 minutes. I turned to the room and apologized for the interruption. I made a small joke about passionate families. People smiled politely. Sales dipped for an hour. I tried to recover the vibe, but it is hard to sell calm wellness when your brother just served you a miniature courtroom. By 3, I had regained some flow. Then a mutual acquaintance sent me a video. He had filmed the exchange on his phone and posted it. The caption said, OP's bro was calm. She was heated. The video was framed wide. In it, he looks like a bank manager offering options, and I look like someone in a panic. People commented things like, he tried to be reasonable, and this is not harassment. The word harassment matters. I used it carefully because what else do you call someone appearing at your workspace to demand signatures? But because he kept his voice down and used polite phrasing, the internet decided I was hysterical. The same cousins who posted the poll reposted the video with arrows and circle annotations like they are forensic analysts. I will say this once. Decorum is not innocence. He showed up uninvited with legal paperwork to force a decision in front of strangers. That is pressure. You can be gentle while applying a vice. But I can already hear the chorus saying I am spinning. So I made a decision. I set my phone to Do Not Disturb and posted a short note on my brand page. Out of contact this weekend for mental reset. Clearance orders will ship Monday. That is not running away. That is setting a boundary. Yes, I am aware that when I say boundary, everyone laughs and tells me I do not respect his. I am respecting mine. The clearance itself did what it needed to. We moved more than I expected. After fees, it is enough to cover the new platform and at least start the pivot. I know people will say, send it all to him. But then there is no pivot, which means there is no future repayment. I am trying to build the engine that pays him, not throw parts into a furnace so he can hear the sizzle and call that progress. At 6, my father texted, he will file Monday. You had a chance to avoid public scenes. That is so unfair. I did not invite a public scene. I planned a pop-up to get cash to make a plan. My mother left a voicemail whisper crying that she hates how we look to the community right now. As if optics are the main thing. I did not call back. I took a bath, drank tea, and wrote this. Here is where I land after today. I accept the judgment might come for the first transfer. If that is the mechanism that finally gets everyone to stop pretending the second transfer was not risk capital, then fine. But I will not sign something that strangles the only path to making any of this right. The clearance worked. The pivot begins Monday. I will protect that runway because it is the only adult option left. Comment 1. Bringing paperwork to your event was awkward, but the video shows him calm and you escalating. That was not harassment. It was a last attempt to get you to acknowledge the loan. Pay him. Comment 2. You keep using words like boundary and harassment while ignoring that you owe him money. The clearance proceeds should have gone straight to repayment of the first transfer. Stop calling accountability a vice. Update 4. It happened Monday morning. A courier buzzed at 9 with a neutral envelope. Inside were small claims filings for the first transfer plus interest and costs. My brother had actually done it. The cover page said a hearing date would be set after my response. There was also a letter from his lawyer repeating the 10 business day demand and attaching the video from my pop-up as an exhibit. They titled it, Incident on Sales Floor. The tone of the whole packet was theatrical. I put it on the counter and made tea because I refused to feed their drama loop. My boyfriend looked at the pages and rubbed his temples. He said quietly that he could not keep Spot covering my courier fees, subscriptions, and Gap expenses while I fight with my family. He said he loves my drive, but he feels like a walking wallet with a pep talk. I told him he was being unkind and short-sighted. He said he was being realistic. Then he said the sentence that froze me. I am not willing to be named in this. I am stepping back. He packed an overnight bag and texted me later that he would stay at his friend's for a while. I stared at the door after he left and told myself out loud that pressure reveals who is made for the climb. At noon, my parents asked me to come by for lunch. I almost said no, but I needed them to hear my plan without the cousins chiming in. When I arrived, my mother already had a plate out. My father had a folder on the table. He is not a folders person, so I knew where this was going. He slid me a single page. It was his proposal. Repay the first transfer in 12 equal installments starting next month, with an automatic e-transfer on the 15th. If I missed one installment, the plan would be void, and he would not intervene with my brother again. He said this was a bridge back to family dinners and quiet holidays. My mother nodded and reached for my hand. I asked if they wanted me to default on my rent to make that happen. My father said budget adjustments are part of adulthood. I said my budget is currently allocated to the pivot because that is the only path that produces enough surplus to pay anyone back meaningfully. He asked, again, for any concrete proof of revenue in the pipeline. I told him I had signed 2 micro-affiliates, and a content creator had agreed to a digital bundle. He asked for names. I said those conversations are confidential. He sighed and said, "You are asking us to fund a mirage." I said I was asking them to respect a timeline that aligns with growth rather than strangling it. He said 12 months is not strangling. I felt my face get hot. My mother squeezed my hand and said, "Please, sweetheart, just say yes and we can start healing." I had my own document. I printed it at home so I would not be ambushed empty-handed. It offered a single lump payment in 4 months, funded by the digital pivot, in exchange for full release of the first transfer and a written acknowledgement that the second transfer remains equity. I said if they truly wanted peace, this was the cleanest path. My father did not even look at it. He pushed it back and said, "No more promissory, someday talk. Pick a date to start paying monthly or accept the judgment that is coming." I laughed. I did not mean to. It came out sharp. I asked him when he became my brother's paralegal. My mother started to cry. She said she feels like she is losing both children to a ledger. I told her I feel like I am being forced to sign my company's death certificate to make the group chat stop. My father stood up and said this is not a company. It is a series of invoices and apologies. That was so cutting. I told him he has always undermined how hard I work. He said he is tired of being painted as a dream killer when he is just asking for a date and $1. He tapped the paper with the 12 installments again and said, "Pick one." I said no. That was the line. He nodded once, very slow, and said, "Then you will live with the outcome." He took my mother's hand. She whispered, "Please, please do not make this the hill you die on." I stood up and said, "I will not be coerced by theatrics. I told them I love them, but I will not accept a narrative that makes me a thief for refusing to burn my runway." I picked up my printout and left. My mother followed me to the porch and asked if I would at least text my brother to say I am sorry for the strain. I said I am sorry he feels strained, but I am not sorry for pursuing growth. That sounded colder out loud than it did in my head, but I did not take it back. When I got home, another envelope was taped to my door. A notice from his lawyer stating that if I do not respond within 20 days, a default judgment may be entered. It also referenced potential wage garnishment after judgment. I felt a wave of heat and then a strange calm. If the system is going to pretend that a March text with a smile emoji is more binding than the words stake and equity that we spoke in April, then let it. I will answer within the deadline using the proper forms. I will contest nothing about the second transfer. I will not bargain on the sidewalk again. I texted my brother a single line. I will respond via the court timeline. Do not contact me except by email. He replied, "Understood." Then he sent me a link to a budgeting app. The pettiness. I did not reply. I opened my laptop and scheduled the digital launch date. I sent my 2 micro-affiliates their codes. I filmed a short, clean explainer about the bundle. I drafted a message to my list that did not mention family, courts, or drama. Just value and timing. Execution beats noise. Always. Now the fallout is spreading. My aunt posted another story about how family means showing up. My cousin posted a meme about accountability. My boyfriend has not come back. My parents are not picking sides in public, but my mother texted me a heart and my father sent nothing. I am not numb. I am not a monster. I cried in the shower until the water ran cold. Then I sat down and built my launch calendar. If people want a neat ending where I fold and sign a note to make them comfortable, they will not get it. I will not give the bank my oxygen. If judgment comes, I will deal with it on paper. In the meantime, I am protecting the only engine that produces a real solution. That is not selfish. That is strategy. Comment 1. You walked out on a 12-month plan that would have repaired the first loan and the relationship. You keep choosing pride over payment. Stop calling court filings theatrics. Pay your brother. Comment 2. Your boyfriend leaving, your parents pleading, your relatives begging, and a judge looming are not a conspiracy. They are consequences. You created this. Pay the first loan and stop pretending a pivot is a moral shield. Update 5. The hearing was quick. I thought there would be room to explain context, like how innovators talk casually in texts and how the words stake and equity were used later. The deputy judge asked for the documents related to the first transfer and my March message where I wrote, "I will pay you back by June. Promise." My brother's lawyer handed over a tidy stack with tabs. I had my own packet, but the judge kept steering us back to the first transfer. He said the second transfer could be a separate dispute if anyone wanted to chase it. But we were here on a simple claim for a defined amount, dates, and a clear payback text. He asked if I contested that the first transfer was a loan. I tried to explain founder language. He said, "Yes or no?" I said I intended to repay when the company stabilized. He wrote something down and said that was not a direct answer. Judgment entered. Amount plus modest interest plus costs. There was no speech, no lecture, just the paper. Everyone loves to act like court offers wisdom, but it just stamps paperwork. I walked out into humid air and had to resist the urge to post a long caption about how risk culture gets punished in this province. I did not post. I went home and sent a respectful note to the court email confirming my mailing address. That is all you can do when the machine moves. 2 weeks later, I missed the first court-ordered installment. It was not spite. The pivot launch had some subscriptions, but not enough to both reinvest and hit the exact date. I decided to reinvest because that is how you build. The next day, a wage garnishment notice landed in my inbox. I had picked up a part-time marketing coordinator role to cover my basics, and now a slice of those hours is routing straight to my brother under the order. The garnish happens before I even see the money. It feels like a vacuum in the wall, humming, pulling, while I am trying to sleep. Then the car. I had been juggling payments on an older hatchback that still had a balance. Between clearance, subscriptions, and legal fees, I was late too many cycles. A towing company took it at 5 in the morning. They were polite. They said I could retrieve personal items at the lot. I stood on the sidewalk in a robe and watched them click the chain. The driver said, "Sorry." I said, "Me too." I do not cry in front of strangers. I shut the door and slid down the kitchen cabinets and sat on the floor until the sun came up. My boyfriend is now fully gone. He moved his things in 2 quiet trips while I was at work. He left a note saying he hopes my business finds its shape, but he is tapped out emotionally and financially. He said he felt like a debit card with legs. That was cruel. I loved him. I still think if he had held the line with me for 1 more quarter, he would have been here when the pivot hit its stride. Instead, he joins the chorus that says all the same words: accountability, timeline, payback. As if repetition equals truth. My parents did not celebrate the judgment, but I can feel their relief. My mother invited me to dinner, but paused and said she understands if I am not ready. My father texted one line, "Make the payments on time." He did not add a period, which in his language is softness. I replied, "I am focusing on consistency." He said, "Good. We are not fixed. We are functional. That is fine." The family pile-on has cooled because there is nothing juicy to screenshot. There is only a black box that moves money from my pay to my brother's bank. Some cousins apologized for their stories, saying they got caught up. Others did not. I muted half my contacts and turned off story replies. I narrowed my world. I am renting a smaller place now, in a building that smells like detergent and dinners. It is fine. I can walk to my part-time job. I can ship orders on the way. I do not need a car to be a builder. I need a plan and my laptop and a calendar. I know what people will say. That the garnish means I was always wrong. That the repossession means I could not manage my life. That the breakup means even those closest to me could not stand my choices. I will not accept that narrative. The court confirmed the first transfer was a loan. That is all it confirmed. It did not convert the second transfer into a debt. It did not erase the fact that he wanted to be part of something. It did not measure how hard I worked, how many nights I packed boxes and wrote emails and smiled for customers after I swallowed a scream. What I am doing now is simple. I am paying the order. I am building the pivot. I am not performing pain for relatives who want a theater of regret. This is not me bragging. This is me surviving. If I ever pay the first transfer off and then generate real surplus, I will circle back and make a private good faith gesture about the second. I do not owe that. I am choosing it, because that is who I am. Am I the jerk for keeping my clearance and subscription revenues aimed at the pivot while the garnish takes care of the judgment, instead of letting my brother dictate every dollar and timeline of my life? Comment 1. You are the jerk. The court confirmed the first loan. You missed the very first installment. The garnish happened because you chose to ignore the order. Stop calling this strategy. It is avoidance with branding. Comment 2. Your life got smaller because of your own choices. Pay on time. Build if you want, but do not pretend starving a court order is noble. The second investment is a separate mess. The first debt is plain. Final update. 10 months later. 10 months is a long time in startup time. It is a whisper in court time. I live on a quiet street near a laundromat and a coffee shop that sells day-old pastries at a discount after 4. I can carry my groceries home in 2 trips. I walk everywhere. I know which sidewalks pool with rain and which bus benches are warm in the afternoon. Life is smaller, yes, but it is legible. I can see the pieces. The judgment is now a line item I no longer argue with. The garnish runs, I budget around it, and I make my rent before I look at anything else. I automated bills. I learned to love spreadsheets the way my brother does. There is a list with due dates and little green check marks. It is not glamorous. It is not a brand. It is control. The business did not die. It shed skin. The physical box is gone. The pivot to digital took longer than I pitched to my parents, but subscribers stuck around because the content is better. I record in the morning by the window because the light is soft. I edit at night. 2 micro affiliates grew into 6. One is tiny but loyal. I do not chase big names anymore. I work with people who actually show up. The revenue is not wild. It is real. I can track it week to week. Some months look like a staircase. Others like a hallway. That is growth. Not viral. Durable. My brother and I are on formal terms. We do not text. We do not discuss the second transfer. He forwards the quarterly statement that shows the garnish amounts applied to the judgment. He writes, "Received." I reply, "Noted." That is our language now. No emojis, no promises. When he sees me at my mother's house, he nods. I nod back. We pass mashed potatoes and avoid old jokes. His wife is civil. She hands me a Tupperware at the end of the night without commentary. I take it and say thank you. Once, leaving, she said, "I hope you are doing okay." It sounded unscripted. I said, "You too. We are not friends. We are family." Sometimes that is the whole sentence. My parents are gentler. My mother knits while I talk. She does not try to fix me anymore. She asks what I am recording next week and then tells me her favorite tea. My father does not tap papers on the table. He brings me jars of lentil soup and asks if my shoes are good for winter. He has stopped trying to turn my life into a ledger. Or maybe he saw I made one on my own. He never said I was right. He does not have to. I do not need a verdict. There were costs. The car never came back. I learned to book a car share when I need to haul boxes. My boyfriend did not return. I unfollowed him so I would not reread the note he left in my head. I made new friends in the building who text me about movie nights in the common room and split frozen pizzas. I learned that you can laugh with someone you met in the laundry line and it counts as a Friday. People still try to bait me into rewriting the story. A cousin messaged, "Do you admit you were wrong now?" I wrote back, "I pay what the court ordered and I build." That is my answer. I did not add anything about investment versus loan because there is no air in that room. He wants a confession. I do not have one to give. I did not steal. I did not set out to harm. I believed in a thing. I asked someone who said yes. And then I learned what happens when paperwork meets risk. The court called the first transfer a loan. Fine. I did not appeal. I adjusted. The second transfer remains exactly what it was. Equity in a venture that changed shape. He will never accept that. I have stopped asking him to. If one day the digital arm throws off real profit and I can send him something with no strings, I will. Not because I owe it under law. Because I remember how he looked when he said he wanted to be part of something. People can call that pride or guilt. I call it memory. Closure is not a ribbon, it is a routine. I make coffee. I check the dashboard. I schedule content. I answer customer emails. I take a bus. I text my mother a photo of the sky. I send my brother's payment. I move on. The circle is smaller, the noise is lower, the work is honest. I can breathe in this life. If you want a tidy moral, there is only this. Paper wins in rooms where paper matters. Cash flow feeds court orders. Families survive if everyone stops demanding a televised apology. I am not the villain some people needed. I am not the hero I pitched either. I am a person with a spreadsheet and a plan, and 10 months later, I am still here. That is enough for me.